Good evening. Hello. Say hello so I know that you're here. This is like my thing now. I always say the same thing, don't I? Say hi to me so I know you're here. Hi. Hello. Good to see you guys. Tonight we're talking about something that is so important, really. I have thought about this so much. It's been on my mind lately. And I thought, since last week we spoke a lot about this on my Instagram page, on stories and things like that, we spoke about it a lot. I was talking about the way things are in Brazil and abroad, outside of Brazil too, when it comes to learning English. And, hi guys. And we spoke about this and I thought, actually, I think there are other things that need to be said when it comes to my point of view. Pay attention. I'm not saying this is the universal truth. No, I'm saying it's my point of view, which is what I'm sharing with you today. Okay, so if you think otherwise, no probs. If you have friends that think otherwise, no probs. Now listen, when I say it like this, it's so easy and so important. If you think otherwise just means if you think differently. So great, isn't it? Instead of saying if you think differently, you can say if you think otherwise. It's a lovely way to use the word otherwise. So if you think otherwise, no probs. But I do want to share my point of view because I think it could help you guys, okay? So. First thing I want to say is I'm going to ask you guys a question and you're just going to say yes or no to me, okay? Have you ever heard me talk about this idea of bringing English into your life? Have you heard me talking about this maybe in a video on YouTube or on Instagram or during a live? Maybe. Have you heard me say this before? How to bring English into your life, and you need to bring English into your life. Have you heard me say this before? Yeah, you have. Of course you have. Bring English into your life. Now, today I want to say something to you that is more technical for you to understand why I keep on saying that you need to bring English into your life. I say this all the time. It's like another one of my sentences, isn't it? You need to bring English into your life. Absolutely. But it's true. Now, when it comes to the concept of language learning, okay, I'm not a linguist. I'm a teacher, you know this, but I know this for a fact. When it comes to the concept of language learning, there are two things that we need to think about, okay? We need to think about two things, which are language learning. What is language learning? Language learning is you wanting to learn English, for example, which is not your language. Your first language is Portuguese, fine. So language learning is you sitting down, trying to learn English with grammar rules. What's the difference between to and for? How to use ing? What's the difference between may and might, for example? So it's you sitting down and trying to learn all of these rules. Also, trying to learn about pronunciation. So you are consciously trying to learn pronunciation, consciously trying to learn intonation, up and down, how your voice goes up and down in a sentence. And it's you consciously trying to learn how this language works. So you're trying to understand the difference between the present, the past, and the future, and you're doing all of these things. It's heard Adriel is exactly what Andre and Natasha are saying, okay? Heard. Thanks, guys. So this is language learning, number 1, okay? Which is not what I normally do with you guys. What I do, however, is another process, which is language acquisition. So when you acquire something, it's very similar in Portuguese, actually. We also have a verb that is similar to this one. Very similar. If you think about it, you're going to know what I mean. It starts with A as well, okay? So when you acquire something, this thing is now yours. You acquire something, okay? Now, language acquisition is what I keep on telling you, that you need to bring English into your life. Now, listen to this, okay? Language acquisition is also what happened to you when you were a kid and you were learning to speak Portuguese, if that's your first language, which I believe it is. When you were a kid and you were, listening to your parents and your family and your friends at school and your teachers, what was happening to you was all of these words were being presented to you within a real life context, and you were therefore acquiring this language, your first language. You did not learn any grammar rules until you were about 12 years old. Until you were about 11, 12, you didn't really learn grammar. All you knew was through what people said to you. So when you were speaking your first language, you knew what to say just because of what people around you, as well as watching television, maybe reading books, things like that, all of that environment around you was giving you. So you had this process of language acquisition. All of you guys did. All of us in the world. Okay? So try to understand what I'm doing here, because this is so important. You went through this amazing natural process of language acquisition, and by the time you started to learn grammar, when you were about 11, 12 years old at school, you spoke Portuguese fluently, yes or no? Just say yes or no. By the time you started to learn grammar, Portuguese grammar at school, when you were about 12 years old, you were fluent in Portuguese, yes or no? Please, I want to see. No, you were not fluent in Portuguese when you were 12 years old? Didn't speak Portuguese when you were 12? You did. Of course you did, guys. When you were 12 years old, you spoke Portuguese fluently. You had conversations with everybody around you. You put a movie on, a Disney movie, you understood everything that was being said. You were fluent according to your age, right? A 12-year-old has the level of fluency that is, suitable for a 12-year-old, right? I'm not talking about fluency like university level. I'm talking about 12-year-old fluency, obviously. You were fluent. You knew the language. You could listen to a song and you could tell everybody exactly what was being said. If your friend talked to you, you understood your friend. If your teacher spoke to you, you understood your teacher. Obviously, you were fluent when you were 12, trust me. What happened was, when you went to school, and when you got to a certain age, which was about 11, 12, and you started to learn grammar, you were fluent. You knew the language. And so what happened was, you knew what to say, and then your teacher was explaining to you the difference between. This is more advanced, actually, was not when you were 12, but the difference between em vez de and ao invés de, for example. And when you're a little bit older, your teacher also explained to you that there are two words, one that you hear all the time, which is bastante, and another word that you don't hear so much, which is bastantes. It's also correct, by the way. So, when your teacher was explaining those rules to you, and what is the difference between the 4 porquês? You knew the language. You knew Portuguese. You could communicate in that language really well. Okay? So what happens is, you know the language when you go through this process of language acquisition when you're a child. You know the language, you learn some grammar at school that helps you to do what? Oh my. It helps you to improve your communication skills. That's what grammar does, right? It helps you to improve. It makes you better. It makes you write better because you know the difference between all the 4 different porquês. So it helps you write better. It helps you communicate better, to put your ideas across and to use fancy words, and you understand where words are supposed to go in the sentence. So your communication improves and it gets better, even with really basic grammar, okay, guys? I'm not even talking about super advanced grammar. I'm talking about basic things, simple grammar, okay? And then, if you are interested in speaking well, you will learn some of those things and you're going to speak better when you grow up to be an adult. Brilliant. What language learning does, on the other hand, 2 hands. On one hand, language acquisition makes you fluent by being immersed, by being in contact with this language. And later on, you will then learn grammar. This is what language acquisition does. On the other hand, language learning teaches you all the rules first when you don't know the language. So basically, guys, what I'm saying is you don't know the language and you want to somehow, miraculously, you want to learn all the grammar rules to be able to speak a language that you don't know. Can you see that there is a big confusion happening here? Big confusion happening here. Because what language learning does is essentially change the natural order of things. And you expect to have amazing results. And you expect, and you're always telling me this, all of you guys, you expect to speak English the same way you speak Portuguese. Oh, I'm so upset because I just can't speak English the same way I speak Portuguese. This is never going to happen. I'm so sad. I'm like, yeah, because you're doing it wrong. Because you're thinking about learning the language as opposed to acquiring the language. Do you see what I'm saying here? Is this clear to you? So instead of grammar, I need to know all the rules and the names. Most useless thing in the world, actually. Names, really, for grammar terms? Are you a linguist or a teacher or something? I don't know. Instead of that, focus on actually doing what I've been telling you to do for the past 5 years, bringing English into your life. For real. English every day. Now I need to breathe because I'm like sweating here. Hold on, let me just read what you guys are saying, then I'm going to go back to my point. I spoke so fast. Yeah, we don't think about these things. That's the problem. We don't think about it. That's my job. My job is to think about it and then show it to you, because it's hard to see. It's hard to see because this is how the whole thing works, isn't it? You go to a language school and that's what they do. Have a private teacher, that's what they do. So you think this is the only way for me to learn. And I'm like, no, it's not. Now I'm going to tell you something. This is a very good point. You guys know that my kids, I've got 2 kids, in case you don't know this. My son is 5 years old. My daughter's 4. And we live in Brazil nowadays, but we speak only English to our children. So both my kids are fluent English speakers living in Brazil, because from the day I found out I was pregnant with baby, from the day I found out I was pregnant, I started talking to them in English in my belly. And I never spoke to them in Portuguese. And I'm not even just talking about myself and my husband. We never spoke to them in Portuguese. We just talked to them in English. So the kids are fluent. Okay? Now, listen to this. 2 days ago, possibly 2 or 3 days ago, I was talking to my son. He's 5. Listen to this. It's so important. And remember, they went through the same process you went through as a kid learning Portuguese, which is language acquisition. They went through the same process in English, okay? So English is their first language. Now listen. About 2 or 3 days ago, I was talking to my son, and my son said, "Oh, remember that day that I left something at the hotel?" This is like, I don't know, 2 years ago when we traveled. He forgot something at the hotel. He left something at the hotel. And he said, "Oh, I remember when that happened. So sad." And then he said, "What if somebody," listen to this, right? He goes, "What if somebody finds it? They find it and they go there to the hotel receptionist and they say, 'Look, I found this.'" And then I said to him, "Would you like to go to the hotel and claim it?" That was my question to him. Would you like to go to the hotel and claim it? Do you know what he said to me? This kid is 5. He said, "What's claiming?" Whoa! I was like, hello, that's a great question. And then I said, claiming something is when you go to this place, like the hotel, and you say, "Hi, I left something here. Have you found it? It's mine." This is claiming something. And so guess what? He understood my explanation because he is a fluent speaker. So, do you see? Now imagine if I sat down with him and I tried to teach him English and I said, "Right, Dominic, today Mom is going to teach you a very important verb, which is claim. The infinitive form is to claim. The past of claim is, the future of claim is," and this is how you would... What? He wouldn't understand my explanation because he doesn't know the language and he will never remember. But I explained to him what this means in a normal way, not in grammatical terms, and he understood because he knows the language already, so he can understand my explanation. Isn't it amazing? Now I'm going to give you another example of my daughter. She's 4. Sometimes she gets a little bit confused when it comes to speaking, a little bit crazy. And so she says something like, "I goed to the park." Like, really? I goed. As in like, the past of go is gold. And so I always correct her and I say, I went to the park. She goes, yeah, I went to the park. So sometimes she does that. She gets a little bit confused. Kids do that if you don't know, right? She gets a little bit confused and she'll go, I go to the park. Do you see why she does that? She does not do that because she knows that there is a list of regular verbs. No. And when it's a regular verb, you add ed at the end. No, she doesn't do that for this reason. She does this simply because sometimes, because she is 1 year and 4 months younger than Dominic, so he is slightly more developed in terms of language than she is because she's younger. So sometimes she will guess based on things she knows. So she knows that we would say, I helped you and I cleaned the room, for example. So she knows that. So she's like, okay, helped, good. Simple. So she's using her linguistic logic here, which is what you do when there is this process of language acquisition. And if you've got a mom like I am, this person is going to be correcting you when you make mistakes, which is what I do the whole day. So in this case, she will be then fixing those little mistakes she makes, which are normal when you are learning a language, when you are, becoming fluent. And that's okay. And this happens because of logic, She's like, okay, helped, good. That's it. Like, this must be right. I'm like, no. So this is what happens. Now, the last thing I want to say, I've been talking so much. Last thing I want to say, which is so important, again, to help you understand what I'm talking about, is on Sunday, which was yesterday, I was watching a movie called Can You Ever Forgive Me? It's a great movie based on a real story. Like, whoa, good movie. I was watching this movie and Can You Ever Forgive Me? That's the title. And it's American. And there were 2 sentences from this one movie, 2 sentences that if you are trying to learn English with your books and your rules and your grammar, you will be like, oh, whoa, wrong English in the movie. Shocking. Yeah. In the movie, 2 sentences. Sentence number 1 was, the friend said something like, I see you tomorrow. I can't, something like this. I'll see you tomorrow then. And she replied, you shall. You shall. Now, shall is another way to say will. Okay, so this is referring to the future. However, if you look at your book, you will find that when you use shall referring to the future, technically, you're supposed to use it only with I and we. So I shall, we shall only. Interesting. So the movie's wrong, right? No, the movie's not wrong. It just so happens that there is language from a book and there is language in real life. Which one do you want to learn? Pick and choose. Yeah. Now, second thing from the movie. She was explaining what she was doing wrong. She got into this weird fraud scheme and she was explaining to this friend what she was doing. And he said something and she said this. Now, this one, you guys are going to be shocked. She said, you're not understanding this. My American accent is shit. She said something like, you're not understanding this. You're not understanding this. I'm pretty sure that if you like grammar, you have probably read in your book that the verb understand cannot ever come with ing. Never. Right. And yet, the American movie is saying you're not understanding this. Do you see what I'm saying? Language acquisition shows you that sometimes rules are bent. They are, like, technically we should have said ao invés de, but we said em vez de. That's fine, and no one's gonna know. Same in English. And I'm not, don't get me wrong here, for real, I'm not telling you you don't need to know any grammar. Just say whatever you like. That's not it. My English, as you can see, is quite well spoken. I try to stick to rules that I know and to communicate as well as I possibly can. However, there will be things in everyday communication that will kind of go against what you see in your book. And you need to accept that. Because if you don't, you're always going to be like trying to say something. This is going to be you trying to speak, right? You're going to be trying to say something and you really want to risk it. You really want to say, don't worry, you shall get a call from me next week. You really want to use shall instead of will. And then you're like, shall, can I use with you or just I? Can I use with he and they? Can I? Oh, I don't know. I don't remember the list. Well, I'm just going to use will. This is what's going to happen. You're not going to use anything. You're not going to risk. You're always going to use things that you know for a fact are correct because of your list and because of your book. This is what I wanted to say tonight. Very important thoughts I wanted to share with you. Grammar is important, guys. I'm not saying grammar is not important. Grammar is important after you have already acquired the language. You're okay speaking English? Now maybe you can fix some of those things that you are confused about. Great idea. Learning all of the grammar rules before you know the language? It's going to take you 15 years to say, hello, how are you? So, guys, thank you for coming. Gosh, it was a long conversation, wasn't it? But it was good. Thank you so much. Next week, I'm going to be live on Instagram. This is what I'm doing. 1 week here, 1 week on Instagram, kind of taking turns. I think it's cool because then people that only, follow my work on here can watch, and people that are on Instagram can watch it there. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful week. I hope you understand the points I wanted to bring to you tonight, and I hope they help you to understand the big difference between language acquisition and language learning, and why language acquisition is more effective. Just look at yourself and your brilliant Portuguese that you know. That's it. Right, let me just see. Okay, I think that's it. Thanks, guys. Have a lovely evening. See you next